Good morning and welcome to Small Biz Life, episode 133. And today we're going to be talking about why you need to stop half-assing your social media. So, we were kind of thinking about what to do for this week's episode, and people have been asking us about the Twitter changes, which if you haven't heard, basically Twitter has come out and said that you can no longer use the same tweet over and over again. And so
on your personal account, you can never use it twice on your personal account. If you have like a company account, you can, as long as it's not the same time, you can share the same tweet over multiple accounts. Like if you have a company account and your account, you could do the same tweet over both of those, but not ever in the same account.
Right. And so for most people, kind of the strategy was you would build up a library of your evergreen content and you would reshare that content. And now what Twitter has said is you cannot post the exact same tweet on the same account more than once. You have to tweak it a little bit. So you'd have to have different hashtags, you'd have to have different wording. You can share the same link, but not in the exact same way. And so this has kind of made us think, and it's made a lot of other business owners think, what are we doing with social media? Because, I think a lot of us, because of those scheduling tools, we started half-assing our social media strategy, right? So like, okay, I'm doing stuff because I've got all this content going out there multiple times a day, and I don't need to be real. I don't need to be authentic. I don't need to do anything because it's on autoplay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this has made us and a lot of other people go, you know what? It's time for a new strategy. It's time to bring the A game back to social media.
And now Chris and I share a mentor in this digital world space, and she did tell us a while ago, and everyone who she works with, that you shouldn't be doing it that way anyway. But it was simpler, it was easier, and you can share your stuff in a bunch of different places very easily and not think about it. And this kind of reinforces that she was right and Jeffrey was wrong.
So today, through this episode, we want to challenge you to start bringing your A game to one platform on social media. Mm-hmm. The days in which you can be everywhere on social media, unless you have a team that you're paying, it is going to be much more difficult to do that. Mm-hmm. So how do so where do we go from here? So like, I know you've been thinking about this for our brands. What did you come up with?
So for our brand, we're going to focus on Facebook. Just that's where most of the people are, even with Facebook being in the news in a negative light. Facebook made the most sense for our brand, because the way I came down to it was our chance to compete with, and we have a third co-host. I don't know if everyone can hear him now, but for our brand,
so for our brand, it makes the most sense because our avatar is on Facebook. We've talked multiple times on the show about how avatar is incredibly important, because it allows you to know where to go and who to talk to. And so in our brand, we've said, okay, knowing who our avatar is, we know that they're on Facebook. We know that they're active on Facebook, they're participating there, they're active in groups, and the other platforms are not going to give you things like groups to interact with people. There's like, Instagram is great, but Instagram does not have a sharing component. Yeah. Right. So people have to find you and come into your ecosphere, and it's harder for people to find you because, there is no sharing component. I like Pinterest, and you can get amazing traction on Pinterest. The problem is that because of the posting size, you have to create custom graphics for Pinterest, and because it's very visual, and you need to stand out on that board, you need to have crazy graphic design skills in order to be able to pop out on Pinterest.
Yeah, I have BS level graphic design skills, and I can actually make things look pretty good in certain forms. Like I can make websites look pretty good. I can do pretty good on Facebook images and Twitter images and like thumbnail type of images for YouTube. But Pinterest, you look at the images that pop there. It's usually an incorporation of several good graphics, and I could probably get there if that's what I did. But it's not what I do. And the problem is it takes a skill development that I just don't have and don't have the time to develop. So I agree with Kristen. I think Pinterest is huge, and it's a great place to sort of have long-term visibility for posts. But I think there's a upfront cost that's expensive to get into the Pinterest game. At this point, it's too big.
Right. And that's the thing is like, we're kind of, when we're trying to decide where we want to go on social, we want to have different options. Mm-hmm. And so the nice thing with Facebook and Instagram is that you've got video, you've got graphic posts, with Facebook, you can actually write long form text posts. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at your different options and you want to be able to post content in different ways, get different degrees of interaction, allow there to be sharing. And if you just look at the size of the community, Facebook has the largest user base other than like YouTube.
Mm-hmm. And YouTube is always trying to figure out a way for the community to be more directly interacting without it just being video responses. But they're just nowhere close to having that ability yet.
Yeah. So, so when we're talking about social, at least for our business, and I think for most of your businesses, I think you're probably talking about sticking with Facebook. I know that Facebook has some issues, but, looking at it again, I think a lot of businesses, large and small, are going to come to the same conclusion that we have, that even though, they may not be protecting people's data, people are not going to leave, because where else are you going to go? Your family is on Facebook. It's easy to use on something like Snapchat. And hey, if you want to see the baby pictures are on Facebook. So, so it's kind of one of those things where, I think businesses, even if they're pulling some of their advertising dollars away, one of the reasons that businesses advertise on Facebook is because the data that you can get about an audience is pretty incredible.
And my question is, when a lot of these companies are saying they're going away from Facebook, does it mean they're not using the same data and data mined to advertise on Instagram, which is owned by the same company and it's all part of the same ad manager? I can go to the ad manager, make them to go to both platforms or to just one or the other platform. I think there's some disingenuousness on the people pulling back from Facebook. The problem is Facebook, unlike Snapchat, is larger than its influencers. Snapchat's in trouble when it loses influencers. Facebook can lose unless there's a mass rebellion of content providers, which I could see an argument for why you'd want to do that. Because they are kind of jerks to content creators, but it's because they're bigger than the content.
Yeah. So let's kind of talk about strategy and how you can figure all of this out for your business, because I think it's going to be critically important that you come up with, an all-in strategy for how you're going to deal with social media going forward. So we're going to give you a list of questions that you should go through and you should ask for your business. And if you want, if you want to get to this post, you can go to smallbiz.life/133. Okay. smallbiz.life/133. Or you can just go to smallbiz.life.com and you can go to podcast and go through the show notes and find episode 133. But we're trying to make it a little bit easier for you to get to some of our links, but you'll get the whole list of questions there. So the first question is, what do you want to get from social media? Like, why are you there? Because here's the thing, there's some businesses that they're like, you know what, I don't need social media. I don't need the referrals. Like I'll tell you, like the CPA firm isn't really active on social because I'm not trying to grow that part of the business. Typically what you're trying to get from social media is exposure and growth, right? At the end of the day, you want to grow your business. You want more sales. And so that's really what you want from social. Right?
Yeah, no, most definitely. And in theory, even if she was working with her, see the little bit is staring completely at you. Even when you're trying to work with social media, and let's say she was trying to grow a CPA firm, we could still have the same podcast. We could still have the same social media approach, but ultimately it's how are we trying to drive the traffic? And when they get to the website, what comes up? Are we trying to get people booked in to become CPA clients? Yeah. Eric thinks that is a good thing.
So, and again, I think we've kind of talked about this before on the show, but sometimes we think of the social media strategy only, and we're containerizing that. We're not thinking of it in a bigger picture with the rest of the strategy of our business. So how does social media fit in with webinars and trainings and live networking that we're doing, off of the computer? Because I think sometimes we forget that you can actually do that.
Yeah.
And so how does social media fit into a comprehensive growth strategy for your business? And I know next month in HQ, we're going to be talking about marketing strategy, right? And how to put together a marketing plan.
And an overall plan, not just a plan on how to do social media. That is part of it. The thing is, once again, it's like, if we're planning a big launch, all of our social media should be trying to get people into the pages that start that funnel process. And that's how we should be using social media. There needs to be a purpose to the action, or else it becomes a clever way of saying, oh, I'm doing creative work for my business today. And when I'm doing my creative work for my business, that doesn't count as an admin task. But if you're just creating images for the sake of creating images to share out on social media with no plan, then that becomes really administrative work. And it's busy work that you're giving yourself to stay away from ways to grow your business.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you have to be really conscious when you're doing social. Is it busy work, or is it part of that strategic plan? Next one, and we bring this up all the time, who do you want to talk to? Because that is really going to determine where you're going to go. You can Google, and I know that we've done this before. I don't know if it was for the HQ group or if it was for a podcast episode, but we talked about, I think it was a podcast episode, the demographics of each of the social platforms. And that information, it's public information. Once you put together your avatar, you can figure out very easily where they are on social and where they spend the majority of their time. Are you doing evergreen content, or are you doing either live content or content that is time sensitive? So if you're doing launches, if you're talking about, if you're promoting a webinar, then that's going to be content that you really need to focus in on social for a while until that event is over. If you have blog posts and podcasts, a YouTube channel, then you've got more evergreen content to play with. I think that all social media strategy needs to have some live content.
Yes.
So, like we have a podcast, but we've chosen to record the podcast live on Facebook as a way to bring people in to, to that platform. And we've actually seen that the numbers for the podcast, even if we don't have a lot of people who watch it live, the numbers for the podcast are actually increasing because people are going back and listening to other episodes after they watched an episode on Facebook, or maybe they caught a piece of it, and then they go back to the website and they're listening to content there.
And it's easy to get caught too much into the vanity metrics, which I know we've talked about before, maybe even in the same episode. It's really easy to get caught up in the vanity metrics. I say, for podcasts, it's downloads. So putting it up in video form here, and we put it up, take this video and put it up on YouTube as well too. You could argue it's taken away from downloads, which potentially it is, but ultimately people are seeing the content, and our ultimate goal is not downloads. Our ultimate goal is to get people to click through, is to get people to engage in the content, to learn from the content. We can reach more people if we do more platforms, and the same people might go through our links and maybe get into the funnels and ultimately get digital products from our digital product e-commerce company, not anything else.
Right, because ultimately the goal is reach, right? So I'm not concerned with how we reach people. I am concerned with, do we reach people, and do we reach them on a regular basis? So if you look at what we're doing now for Ingram Digital Media, so we've got, on Tuesdays, we record the podcast live on Facebook. Then that video will go up onto our website. So it's not like YouTube embedded into the website. It's actually on the website itself. It also goes onto YouTube, and it also goes into all of the podcast platforms that we're on. So I don't care. I don't care where people listen. I don't care how they find it. I just want people to find it.
Yeah.
And so when you start thinking about the strategy like that, instead of, oh, well, I want to maximize my YouTube numbers, or I want to maximize my iTunes numbers, it opens up a whole bunch of different possibilities. So I kind of want you to think about that as well.
And I think the live is so important too. I was reading a stat that was put together, and they're saying at this point, online marketing, only about 30% of online marketing at this point is utilizing live. So there's still an opportunity to do outreach, whether it's a video show form, or it's just like live from your shop, or whatever you use the live to do to bring it into your ecosystem. There's still an opportunity there, because it's most of your competition at this point isn't thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, we want you to think about, how are you utilizing ads and traffic and attraction? One of the things that is great about Facebook is that you can take pretty much any content that you put on your page and turn it into an ad. You can take live content and utilize that in ads. You can create ads that never appear on your page. But if you don't have a Facebook page for your business, you can't run ads. And so even if you're doing attraction marketing, even if you're doing, if you're driving traffic to your website, if you're utilizing Facebook, the page is going to be a critical component of that strategy. Okay. Yeah. And so, if you're doing lives, you might want to do some lives on your personal page. You might want to do lives in your groups. But, even if you go, like, if you do if you do Twitter live, you can't turn that into an ad. And so I think that's one of the other strategies that makes Facebook more appealing. Twitter's ad game is still kind of behind the curve with what you can do with either Instagram or with Facebook. Okay, so the next question is, how do you convert social media followers into customers? And that is, I think that's one piece where a lot of us that were playing the automation game were falling behind, because you're not engaging with people. Yes, you're posting lots of content, but you're not there trying to engage your followers to turn them into fans, to turn them into customers.
And I knew this was definitely a problem in like Twitter for me, when I'd go and someone would have actually responded to a tweet I had put out, and I'm responding to their tweet like 3 days later.
Because Twitter moves quickly.
I guess. But the thing is, you missed the point. You missed the chance to engage and to actually grow your community when you treat it that way. And there's nothing wrong if you can figure out a short-term solution to share your evergreen content still on on Twitter, by changing the hashtag or having several different headlines, and then just sort of replacing things out to reshare that link, you can do. And I'm sure, clever marketers will do it. I know in HQ, I just gave them an actual Excel document to make it easy to do. But the thing is, are you getting the biggest benefit from your social media?
Yeah, exactly. So when you're trying to determine the best social media network for your business, and I like how Jeff put this together in the show notes for this episode. It's kind of funny. So Facebook is wow, I like small business. Mm-hmm. Instagram is look at my small business in a boss filter.
That's right.
Twitter is I am hashtag small businessing. Mm-hmm. And make sure that you change that tweet every time you post it.
Yeah, that's right. Just don't leave it the same.
LinkedIn is check out my small business skills. And, I would argue that for LinkedIn, if you really want to make headway on LinkedIn, posting content to their pulse and trying to get onto the LinkedIn pulse is the way that you make strides on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And going into their groups probably is a way to do attraction marketing if you're focusing on business to business, or if you're like delivering a consulting service to people, you go interact and answer questions and get people to click through on your LinkedIn profile. And instead of having like a resume, you have like an actual little sales page that is a call to action back to your landing page for your to set up an appointment or however your process works.
Right. I mean, the thing that I find with LinkedIn, and I know like people argue with me about this all the time, but I know I have over 500 connections on LinkedIn, and most of those are people who reach out to me to connect with me. Typically what I find with LinkedIn is that it's a giant search engine. People are searching for other people to connect with that they think that they can sell to. And it's less about spending time, looking at your feed or participating in groups. Yeah, like there's not a huge networking game on LinkedIn. It's mostly searching for the next person to connect with so that you can try to make a sale. And that's typically what I find, people are trying to do with me. So
because I haven't updated and got rid of my resume, so I come up in a lot of recruiters searches I've noticed still. So so it's recruiters are using it to try and find talent for companies, and people are trying to sell to you, which is cool. And I haven't spent a lot of time on LinkedIn. I don't know if I'm going to post there anymore. I might, but it's just not the focus. I don't see people finding our content through there.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. We've talked about Pinterest already. It's a great way for evergreen bookmarking. It is a great way to be found if you do it correctly. It can also be a huge time suck.
If you are a digital graphic design person, you should really, this is one that you should really be considering, because it's a great way to create essentially a portfolio to get people back to your site. So most definitely, but there's a high skill set, or I think a much more expensive cost to get started there.
Yeah, and I would, if you are into either crafting, cooking, anything like that, you want to be on Pinterest. Food blogs do very well on Pinterest. Craft sites and DIY do very well on Pinterest. It's kind of become, like if you're trying to repair something, you go to YouTube. If you're trying to create something, you go to Pinterest. Yeah. So if you are in that creation space, you want to be there.
It also depends if you're looking for male or female. Typically, male people are more on YouTube. Women use Pinterest more, just demographically speaking.
Yep. And I find that on my channels as well. And then Google Plus is an excellent home for your evergreen content for SEO. So I would still recommend that even if you're not automating your social media, you want to make sure that all of your new content gets posted to Google Plus at least one time, because it indexes into Google's search engine much more quickly. when you do
Plus,
that.
Google Plus is a much higher page rank than anything else. So it's like having those links in a YouTube video helps you with your search results.
Yep, exactly. So, and one of the easiest ways to do that is if you have the social sharing buttons on your website, which is still a good idea to have. Then you want to make sure that Google Plus is one of them. And when you post your, this week's blog post or podcast episode or whatever it is, just make sure that you click on that to share it onto Google Plus. Okay, and that's going to help you a lot. What types of content should you post on which platforms? So again, I think this is the time that you say, I am going to commit to one platform and I am going to go, this is going to be the platform that I pay attention to. And then you have to determine based on that ecosystem, what type of content you are going to post.
A great way to start here, if you're in 15 platforms right now or 5 platforms, look at all of your platforms and see where you getting the most engagement from. Are you actually getting click-through traffic already? If you are, this really speeds up this discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to stop creating one post and sharing it on all platforms, okay? Because that's not working. And, you want to make sure that you're embracing what that platform can do. One of the great things about Facebook is you can do long form written content, which is funny because, I think a lot of people, they're moving away from that because they want to do pictures and they want to do video. But I know people that are writing long form content in posts on Facebook who are getting amazing traction with those posts because they're thoughtful, they're engaging, and people are really tuned into them. Long form content works great. You can't do that on Twitter though. Video content does very well, but you've got to know from the platform what length of video can you put out there. Instagram is very short video. Facebook, you have a lot more leeway with what you do for video. Graphics
is shorter still.
Right, unless you do a story. So kind of, understand what is acceptable, what's the norm, what people are doing, and the thing is, like, try out different things. People ask us all the time, how long should your videos be? Well, it really depends. We do
go back to that audience question.
Right. We do about a 30-minute video every week when we do the podcast. So we have some people that they watch the whole thing. We have some people that come on, because they see like the baby's head and they're like, oh, it's the baby. And then we have people who come back and they watch the whole thing later. So yeah, this is Jeff's social media strategy. Just involve the baby and it'll be fine. So, you've got to kind of understand who your audience is. For accounting and focus, which my audience there is 18 to 23. My average view duration is about 4 minutes, even though most of the videos are about 10. Now, I'm not going to try to create 4-minute videos though, because in order to explain, a topic for that site, the videos really have to be about 10 minutes. But what people will do is they will kind of, they will fast forward through part of the video. They will only see like a certain, and that's okay. That's fine. So, you kind of want to play with different things. You want to see what works, but you also want to make sure, like, if you're teaching something or explaining something, that you do what you need to do. Okay. So I think that that's really important.
Okay. I think Kristen is possibly locked up here. So, beyond thinking about the type of content that you want to create, you need to think about, how do you measure the success, of what you're doing on the platform? And it's partially about engagement, because engagement helps with reach. But once again, it's about knowing what the goals with the strategy. So if you're trying to get reach for something like we do with the podcast, we want reach with the podcast because we want to hit as many people as we can to get them listening to the podcast, and then over time bring them in through the thing. So, seeing numbers increase for the podcast overall is good, but ultimately we're going down and we're looking to see, are we getting traffic, coming through links into our site is how's the traffic today compared to what it was a year ago, or what it was when you first launch. Might be better. You'll usually see a little tick up, but then over time you'll get back to that launch number and surpass it.
Right. And that's the thing. And ultimately, you kind of have to go back to what you want to get from social media in order to be able to measure what your success is.
Mm-hmm.
If your success is, growth in your business, then you've got to look at what percentage your business has grown because of your social media efforts. And that's why like having an accounting system and knowing your numbers is really important, but that's a different show.
I do think it's very important to keep it simple. Unless you can afford, a $10,000 a year analytical system to make really complex algorithmic searches and pulling things together, make it something simple. And it's ultimately about the growth of your business. If I do this for 3 months, did I outperform a similar period the previous year?
Exactly. And then the last question to ask yourself is, what is your budget? Because your budget is really going to determine what tools you can afford, how much advertising you can do on these platforms, whether or not, if you don't have the skills to make the awesome Pinterest graphics, can you hire somebody to do that for you? So having a budget is very important to this process, because it's going to dictate a lot of what your social media strategy is going to look like. So that's really important. So what do you do now? Okay. So what we would recommend that you do is that you pick a platform and you go all in on that platform. You decide that this is going to be, this is the year 2018 that I'm going to say, there's no more excuses. If I really want to grow my business and I know that social media has to be part of that strategy, then I am going to put together a strategy to do that. Okay. Now, if you're not sure how to develop, a social media strategy or marketing strategy, we would invite you to check out Small Biz HQ. It's really interesting. I was on a call with someone last week who is an HQ member. And she said, when I talk to people about Small Biz HQ, the thing that I always say to them is, for $49 a month, I have access to a CPA and an IT wizard. And I can ask them questions in the Facebook group, every day for $49 a month. Like, where else can you get that? If you think about how much it would cost you to pick up the phone and call your CPA and ask a question, or pick up the phone and call an IT person and ask a question, it's probably going to cost you more than $49. So, in addition to all the great content that you get, you also get access to Jeff and I to, ask whatever questions you want. We do 4 live calls during the month. You can hop on, you can ask us questions there. You get to see, Eric in some of the videos. But it's, it's a really good opportunity for you that if you are on a limited budget, but you have a lot of questions, that you need someone in your corner to help you, navigate the waters of your business. Small Biz HQ is an amazing value. And so we'd invite you to go to smallbizlife.com/HQ and check out everything that you get for that small monthly investment, because it's pretty impressive. Our members are really happy. Just to kind of give you some perspective, the average membership site, people usually stick around about 3 months. In our site, the average person sticks around for about a year. And we've only been around for a little over a year. Most of our founding members are still with us today, which is pretty awesome. So we'd love to have you come check it out. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us through the site or through, through social media, because we're still on Facebook and we are paying attention. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you again next week.